Hi, welcome everyone to our first Inclusion in Adversity video interview, focusing on the amazing ways our members are supporting inclusion during the COVID-19 phenomena. The aim of these interviews is to share inspiring practice with our members so that we can all continue to learn and develop our thinking and progress on inclusion. I'm Debbie Epstein, and I'm one of the consultants at Inclusive Employers, and I'm joined today by Jenn Barnett, Director of Inclusion, Diversity and Wellbeing, and Shenara Jarrett, Inclusion and Diversity and Wellbeing Assistant Manager at professional services firm Grant Thornton. Jenn and Shenara have kindly agreed to share some of their remarkable work with us, so thank you both for joining me. And firstly, hello and welcome to you both.
Hello, hi.
Hi, good morning, or lunchtime as it is for us at the moment. So firstly, before we kick off, I thought it'd be really helpful for people to understand a bit about what you do at Grant Thornton, where you are on your inclusion journey, and what inclusion means for you as an organisation. So Jenn, I don't know if you want to kick off with a response to that.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon everyone. And it's great to be able to talk about everyday inclusion, which is our strategy for valuing diversity at Grant Thornton. We're focusing really heavily on this, because we think it's really important for our people to feel able to be safe enough to be themselves at work. But also we know that if we build an inclusive culture where we value difference and respect our colleagues, it's the right thing to do and it helps people to perform at the best. We also know that it supports our clients to get a diversity of perspective in terms of the range of work that we offer to our clients, and it generally supports the communities in which we operate to be more productive and efficient and effective if there is diversity of thought and everyone's treated fairly and consistently in the workplace.
So that's a really broad view perspective on it. Would you say that all of those sort of come out in the work that you do?
So we've got two distinct strategies within our vision for inclusion and diversity. The first is about everyday inclusion. So that ambition, if I talk about it in a broad brush to start with, that's about everybody's feelings and experiences matter. So we want everyone to feel that they're treated fairly. So that's an ambition. But we also want to create a culture where it's okay to ask questions and to understand more about different perspectives. So the reason why we think asking questions is really important is that sometimes people are a bit fearful of what they don't know, so they tend to avoid it. So we want to be more open about difference. So we've got three principles around everyday inclusion. The first is about leadership and the importance of leaders understanding difference. So we rolled out a reverse mentoring program as an example of that. To help leaders to understand what it feels like to come from a different culture or a different background, or to just experience difference in a way perhaps that they haven't experienced, and that's really helping our leaders to understand a different perspective. The second principle is about involvement, which is about involving all of our people to ensure we create a culture of everyday inclusion together, and that's involved training of inclusion allies with the support of Inclusive Employers, to have people in our firm who are able to spot unintentional exclusion and be able to call it in so that leaders are aware of that and are able to change in the moment. So I think that's important. And the third principle is around engagement. So that's around having active networks and communications to encourage inclusion and diversity at every level of the organisation. So that's sharing stories about our people, sharing stories about diversity, making it okay to be different. So I'll pause there because that's our strategy about everyday inclusion.
I mean, I love the way that you describe the work that you do, and in that it's so easy to digest and simple and practical, so that means that it will catch on, that people will, they don't need to kind of keep having complex stories and kind of theories explained to them. It's really relatable. So I think that it must be having a really good impact as a result of that. The next question, focusing on more on the inclusion and in adversity theme, was what have been the challenges for Grant Thornton, both for your staff and the business, as a result of the COVID-19 crisis?
So probably similar to a number of businesses. I mean, what brought it home to me was when I spoke to our member firms within Grant Thornton International, and every firm has been affected by this globally. And I think that was a real defining moment for me in terms of, gosh, this is actually a global crisis that, although it feels like it's affecting me on a day-to-day basis, it's affecting everyone. So I think the sheer scale of the crisis has created anxiety and uncertainty in our people. And I do think there's a genuine fear about the unknown. So we know with the human brain that there are two things that really create uncertainty. And it's around the fear and anxiety of the unknown. And if we can reduce that uncertainty, then that absolutely helps to reduce fear and stress. We found that definitely that the anxiety levels have increased across the whole organisation.
Okay, how have you been measuring that, and how do you know about that?
Well, we have mental health first aiders and wellbeing champions across our firm that have been supporting us in just taking a temperature check of what's going on in the organisation, who's saying what, etc. We've actually just launched our first wellbeing pulse survey. That is, sorry, 2 seconds. Sorry. Will, I'm just being interviewed. Would you mind doing that in 5 minutes, please? I'm just being interviewed. Would you mind doing that in 5 minutes? Thank you. Sorry about that. So where was I? I lost my train of thought there.
So you were saying that the wellbeing advisors and the mental health first aiders are helping you take a temperature check across the organisation, and you know that anxiety levels and stress have increased.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then we're just putting together a wellbeing pulse survey just to understand the temperature, that we had a mood across our organisation in terms of wellbeing, but also specifically what we can do more of to help our people. So I think having really clear communications is something that we focused on at a leadership level to try to create certainty as quickly as possible in what we can create. So that has absolutely helped as well.
And thank you for that. I think you're leading nicely on to the third question, actually, which is, what are some of the ways that you're promoting inclusion and diversity at Grant Thornton during COVID-19? And it'd be great to hear, Shenara, you do chip in as well, because I know you've got lots of examples too.
Yeah, so I think in these times, no one really knew or knows what to expect. So it's just about bringing everything that we try to incorporate in our working environment, but in a different way, so virtually. So we've got quizzes that are run firm-wide that we do on a weekly basis. There's regular communications from our CEO, Dave Dunkley, which really does create a really personal touch. And he does it in his house, and sometimes his daughter pops her head in, so it just really makes it a bit more relatable.
As we've just seen now in Jenn's house.
Yeah. We've got loads of different activities. We've got morning workouts that we run in different parts of the firm. We have Feel Good Fridays, which is a message that gets sent around every Friday or Thursday, just as something that takes people's mind away from what they're going through at the moment. So it could be a fun quote, it could be a little GIF or something like that. And we try to make the most of our internal comms teams as well as Yammer. So there's loads of different things that get posted on there. So we're just trying to make it as personal and as interactive as we possibly can.
Fantastic, thank you. Jenn, have you got any other things to add on that one?
Yeah, I think we've spent quite a bit of time talking to our people about some of the things that they can do to just reduce the stress response, which is natural in all of us as humans, that we all have a stress response to uncertainty. So we've talked a lot about things that they can do to prevent that for themselves in terms of the importance of creating routines, eating well, having really good nutrition that helps the brain to work at its most optimum, sleeping well, and creating time for physical activity. So there have been things we've focused on at a kind of physical level. And then we've talked to our people about thinking about focusing their minds on things they can control versus things that are outside of their control. And our natural tendency in a situation like this is to digest as much news as we possibly can. And you know, I think I'm a bit of a believer in the fact that too much news is not good for us in times like this. So it's trying to be careful about the news that you take in and when you take that in, and also focusing on the things you can control within your life. So and the positives as much as possible. So we've been supporting people in that. I think the interesting thing with COVID-19 that we found from a diversity perspective is that it's a brilliant leveler for our firm, in that all of a sudden people who perhaps had disabilities before that they felt were quite visible in the workplace are no longer visible, because everybody is the same, everyone's leveled, everyone's working from home. And I think that is the case for people perhaps who have carer responsibility as well. That's become a family responsibility, as opposed perhaps just to what was traditionally a woman's issue. And I know that's something we've been looking at as part of our gender strategy. But also we know that some of our communities are struggling a bit more than others. So we know, for example, within our BAME community, that perhaps COVID-19 is evidence that it's affecting BAME people more acutely than it is others. So what we have noticed is that there have been more calls for support in terms of bereavement of loved ones within the BAME community, and also within LGBT+, that we've found examples where we've needed to support our people more in mental health, anxiety concerns within our LGBT+ community. So we've been giving specific support as well as more generalistic support. But certainly what we're looking at now is how we can support people who perhaps are vulnerable as well. So people that, I hate to say it, but it needs to be mentioned, people that are in perhaps unsafe home environments, and who need more support with financial well-being, etc. So it's looking at the positives, but it's also helping people to deal with some of those real issues that exist.
Wow, that is amazingly comprehensive. And also I like the fact that you're looking at sort of intersectional issues, you're looking at the whole person. It really gives the impression of Grant Thornton being a really caring and thoughtful organisation. And people will value that so much, won't they, as a result? You know, some of these things that are really going to touch people's lives. So yeah, it's fantastic to hear that.
I mean, these are difficult times, aren't they? Difficult decisions need to be made by all organisations, but I do believe that this is absolutely a moment that matters for people, and people will look back on this and say, well, how did my organisation choose to treat me during this time? And I think loyalty will come as a result. So this is a relatively short-term period in the life of an organisation, but it is a moment that matters and it will be remembered. So I think the more we can accelerate diversity and inclusion in this time, the better equipped we'll be when we're starting to think about how we respond and come out of this. The other thing we're doing is we're starting to look at all the good things that have come out of COVID-19 and what we want to retain when we go back to some form of business as usual, whatever that happens to be. But we are trying to make sure we retain some of the positives coming out of this as well.
Well, it will be great to hear more about what happens as a result in the future. So hopefully we can follow up with you. I just want to say thank you both so much. That was just unbelievable. That was so inspiring and thoughtful. And certainly for me has put a fresh spin on this whole approach to way organisations are supporting and addressing, thinking about COVID, thinking about psychology, so the way that you've applied principles of psychology to the situation as well. So I'm sure others will find it really valuable as well. So thank you very much, and have a really great day, both of you.
Yeah, sorry about the interruption there.
No, that's fine. And actually, just before we finish, I just wanted to share, if other people have got brilliant examples to share, you know, they could be of any nature around what you're doing to support people during this really very unusual time in our history, in our economy and so on. Please do email me, because it's just so valuable to share, as I'm sure you will realise from today's session. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Debbie.
Bye.
Cheers, Debbie. Bye.